It's Peter Mead, and hello and welcome to the Australian Search Marketing Academy. Today we have a really fun and exciting topic and an important topic, Schema Markup Essentials with Judith Lewis, Andrea Volpini, and co-hosted by Nik Ranger. And so it's good to see people joining the webinar. We can see people from all over the world, from people who got up in the middle of the night, like Jenny Hill, and and many others. So that's great. It really makes it worthwhile us doing this, especially during these crazy times where I won't mention the C word, but we're all doing our best and we're all diving straight into SEO. But today we have some amazing SEO people with us, and I would love to introduce each person separately. I'm going to start with Nik Ranger. Nik is a SEO specialist at Studio Hawk, overseeing digital strategy, data analysis, content, site architecture for large enterprise and local business. And Nik focuses on data-driven results. And I've worked with Nik myself, and I've seen she does a mean technical SEO audit. And so welcome, Nik Ranger. How are you today?
I'm fantastic. Thank you so much for having me. Really, really excited to be on this because as I think we're all here to kind of explore a little bit more, structured data is exceptionally important. It's how we show authority around our websites and to web crawlers, and it can really, really make a huge impact in the long term. So excited to get stuck into it.
Great. Thanks for co-hosting. And now I'd like to introduce Judith. Judith Lewis is a renowned SEO and digital marketing consultant with over 20 years experience, predating Google. Yes, I was there too. And working with some of the world's largest brands. She's a regular speaker around the world on SEO and has been recognized by her peers as one of the most influential people in the UK digital industry. Judith also judges the MENA, EU, US, UK, and Australian Search Awards, and also helps with the London Girl Geek dinners and blogs about chocolate. How can I forget to mention that bit? Judith, how are you?
Do you know, strangely, I haven't had any chocolate yet today, and that's a rare thing for me to say. Usually, there's a little bit of squares of something dark for breakfast, just to get that little bit of a caffeine boost. So shockingly, yes. I haven't had my chocolate.
Well, that's okay. We can have some later, and we'll have to hold off on that one.
Can't eat it on camera.
Thank you so much for joining. It's in the morning for you in the UK. Over here, it's the late afternoon. And same, Andrea, thank you for joining. I'm going to introduce you. Andrea Volpini is a highly successful internet entrepreneur and the CEO of WordLift and Inside Out 10. Andrea also has 20 plus years of world-class experience in online strategies, digital media, and SEO. He's also been a co-founder of another company, RedLink. And Andrea also has been so important, the information Andrea has been giving us to do with Schema and appearing on lots of talks and contributing to the community. So Andrea, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. It's really a pleasure. It reminds me when I went to Australia a few years ago. So I'm excited to have the Australian audience attending this webinar. And yes, it's an interesting topic. Absolutely.
Would love to have you back, mate. Love it.
Yeah. We'll try to make something. I mean, as soon as the pandemic is over.
We'll get some kangaroos ready for you.
Yeah, that's good.
Take them out of storage.
I should have some Vegemite now. It's early in the morning here, so I should start with
that.
Oh, absolutely.
That's a good start.
Or closely buy some Tim Tams.
That's also another option. All right. Yeah.
Terrific. So look, we're getting people joining, but I think that there's so much to talk about, and I've had a preview of these slides, and I hope Nik will also help me to co-host here, because there is so much information regarding schema. And this is why when we talked about this from two different perspectives, Judith, yourself as a consultant, and Andrea as a tool provider. And so this is fantastic stuff. So without any further ado, Judith, are you ready to start showing us what you have for us?
Absolutely.
With your slides?
I'll pop these in, and I will pray that everybody can see them, because you know what it's like. You're virtual, and on a stage, it shows up behind you, so you know what's going on. But on a computer, you're just like, well, I'll throw them out there, and let's just hope for the best. So this is me hoping for the best. So this is me. If you want to look me up on the search engine of your choice, please do. I do stuff online. There you go. It's been a long time for me, but schema is something that's quite new. What isn't new about schema is the attempt that we all have of creating relationships between things. So understanding why something exists on a web page, what it means, and search engines back when I started were crap at this. Now they're amazing at it. I hope that's okay. I hope I don't have Anton getting angry at me and saying, "Now I have to bloop you." But
I'll do the beeps.
Beep. It's not just about understanding things, but it's understanding their relationships, no matter how weird those relationships might be. Because sometimes you're like, I don't understand why this is related to the other thing, but okay, Google, whatever. But what we really want to be doing is planning and scheming with our schema. I have been waiting so long to say that.
Well said.
We want to scheme with our schemas. What we want to do is we want to plan things out, and I'm a huge proponent of planning, because if we fail to plan, we plan to fail, as my dad would say. So what we want to do is really map things out, because it's too easy to get caught up in like looking at all the things online and looking at all the stars and the prices and if it's in stock and how many calories a salted caramel fudge truffle has. We all want one of those now, except that they're 239 calories. How big are these truffles? And so you want to mark up all the things. Or at least, some of us want to mark up all the things. And you go in and you're like, oh my God, schema, this is amazing. It has all the markup I could possibly ever want. Don't do that. Just don't. Just telling you now. Don't mark up all the things. Mark up the most important things, but not all the things. And there are some really, really smart things that you can do. There are really, really useful things that you could mark up, because, it's not just about what is possible, but what is practical and reasonable. Everybody's in love with FAQ schema right now. There's a number of different things that you can put on your page. You don't have to be restricted to just FAQ schema and like breadcrumbs. Schema.org itself gives you a hugely easy way to surf through. Now, I've put in here a search for product because, e-commerce is one of the places that schema is often employed. It's not just on blogs for recipes. It's also products. And also a lot of other things. It's not just restricted to those areas. So there are lots of things that you could mark up with schema, but you want to be thinking about the why, because when you get into each thing, this is the FAQ properties that are available for schema. And one of the things that I work a lot in B2B, I always forget about is speakable, because we don't really have that many engineers going into their Alexa devices or Google devices and saying, okay, Google, where can I buy a 3/4 inch torque made of tungsten or whatever? You just don't get those kinds of voice searches for speakable answers. But on FAQs, especially for product pages, it's a great way to ensure that when somebody goes to Google or to Alexa, that you can hopefully get your answer spoken out. But just like we see here, 60% of the time works every time, because it doesn't work every time. And this is why you have to be really strategic and tactical with your schema implementation. It's not just about implementing it and thinking somehow magically it will work. First of all, it has to be implemented correctly. But second of all, it doesn't always stay. So here in the UK, this is an example of somebody that I'm monitoring. In the UK has lost all sorts of rich snippets on products in the run-up to Christmas. Thanks, Google. I'm sure that everybody in retail thought that was a really nice Christmas gift. Yeah, I mean, look at this.
Yeah.
Semrush doesn't
Start
lie,
explaining
man.
that.
Yeah, it's just like, I was looking at it because it's one of the things I monitor just for, I say, the S word and giggles. See, I'm trying to blooper myself. And I went in and I was like, you what? And it just, you've lost all of these featured snippets. Now, the error there is Google, not Google removing feature snippets, but that's an actual Google error. But you can see it's gone from a huge number in the hundreds. I think it was over 300 at the beginning, and it's just dropped straight off. So just because you mark stuff up doesn't mean it'll remain, but also just because it's there today does not mean it'll be there tomorrow. I don't know why Google decided to punish all the retailers out there, but hey, Merry Christmas, guys. You have to think of something else now. Let me think. Oh, PPC maybe.
I wonder. Yeah, that's not all.
But that's not all that Google did to us, man, because, they like to make things just a little bit more interesting for retailers. So what did they do? They introduced these fantastic, not just shopping results, with your lovely stars and your prices and everything. They gave us a whole side panel where we can price comparison shop. Good luck to all those people who aren't the cheapest, because now you're SOL, as we like to say. Also, you can't click through to any of these reviews. So let's say I wanted to go to Overstock or Zulily or any of these. I can't, because those are not clickable. I have to actually copy and paste. I can't go to Spy X Night Vision Mission, whatever, Night Mission goggles on Overstock or Zulily. I have to actually go there and then search again. Thanks, Google. Usability my butt. You can see I'm very opinionated about these things, but I think what it's all about is the fact that we have to be thinking about, ooh, hello, Mom. Yeah, no, sorry. I'm on TV. So what can we do then? Because, you think about it, you've marked up all this stuff, and then Google went and came along and went, hey, we're just going to take that away from you, make it more difficult. So what can you do? You can actually look at what's relevant for you to mark up. So go in and look at the competition, what's going on, and oh, wait, that price is a lot higher than other people. And is 2.5 stars out of 5 really helpful? I mean, do you really want to be showing that in search results? Are you really confident enough in your brand, BoardGameGeek.com, that you really want to be showing those 2 stars down there? Maybe not. And this is the risk, I think, is that, they get 3.7 out of 10 out of 38 reviews. Congratulations. That's a new low, at least for what's pulled through to the search results. At a certain point, I believe it's 3.4, they stop pulling it through because they're just like, you know what? This is embarrassing. So we do have to make choices about what we implement, because, if we don't make better choices, then it's just useless. So FAQ schema, right? Everybody's hot on FAQ schema. Everybody's like in love with FAQ schema. I see gambling using it a lot. So we go through and I did this search from google.co.uk in the UK on a UK IP. And what do I care about whether US players can play real money on EU poker sites, or if online poker is legal in the US? I'm in the UK. Come on, people, think about this. And this is the exact reason why we have to be careful about our FAQ schema, because if we aren't perceived as relevant, we're not going to get the click. And online gambling is hugely competitive, and you screw that up and you lose the click, that's well ranking, but we've just screwed up and lost the click. So it means that your click-through rate on a number 1 or number 2 position goes down because you're not relevant. Oh, it's a US site, not relevant for the UK. So we can do better than this. We don't have to just stick with this kind of bad implementation because, dev time costs money and we really want to be adding value with Schema. We don't want to just do it because we can, because let me tell you, we can do it. If you want us to implement Schema as devs, we can do it. There's plugins, there's all sorts. But should we? Because dev time costs money. So if you have to convince a boss or a CEO or a client about whether you should implement Schema because, dev time costs money, then actually you can show the practical value. Oh, very at the bottom there. Oh, sorry, babes. Did you forget your Schema? Because everybody else has it, lady. And I'm sorry, but you look a little naked down there. But also, oops, out of stock. I'm not going to be clicking on that one. So this is an example of Schema where it actually helps the user. So I know here that lookfantastic.com is not where I want to be going for my Schema. Oh my God, for my Sanctuary 5-minute mask. There are lots of plugins for Schema, and the steps that you can take to implement are super easy. I swear, very.co.uk, please. It's easy. Pay attention now. Now's the time. So the first thing to do is don't panic because, you're like, ooh, dev time. Oh dear. Well, we got to do something. So don't panic about implementing stuff. Just really focus on what's possible. This is a really cute, everything's cute in my world. I'm old and I'm female. And I have nieces and nephews. So you can see here, this is a really easy way to build some JSON-LD. And all I've done here is like drop downs, and I put a URL in and a picture image link of a pint because, I was doing this in the evening. So you can see here, it is so easy.
That's a nice fun tool as well from, play around with that.
Yeah, don't be intimidated. It's not, time is money, people. So, think about it that way. But don't be intimidated. It is super easy to do. And you can actually get a plugin as well. There's lots of ways to generate your structured data to check it with Google. So you can generate anything you want. But there are no guarantees, right? So just because Google says that you can do a thing does not mean that they're guaranteeing that it will show up in the search results. So there are no guarantees with this. Like Ron Jeremy says, 60% of the time, it works every time. And we've lost Schema in the UK. So don't think that just because you're marking something up guarantees it'll be pulled through. It won't necessarily be pulled through. We do use markup to get things like featured snippets because we're helping Google understand what it is on the page that they should be looking at. So we'll use jump to links, we'll use breadcrumb schema, we'll use all sorts of things on a website to help guide Google and help it understand the relationship, and guide Bing and guide Yandex and all the others that have their own spiders. But there are never any guarantees that it'll be pulled through. So thank you very much. That's me. And if you want to get me online afterwards, like if you're too shy to ask now, you can get me afterwards. But thank you very much.
Thank you so much. That was a load of information.
That was amazing.
Yeah.
You can go back and listen to it again.
I love the I love the GIFs. They were really, they really tied into what you were saying.
I do try. I am trying, very trying. Ask my husband. But I found some that really expressed what I wanted to say. And it made it just a little bit more interesting than a dry presentation about schema.
Well, Judith, actually, I was just going to quickly, before we go on to Andrea, Jenny Hill, she actually had a comment about you were saying about the FAQ and some drops happening for the products. And Judith, we are having success recovering FAQ product drops by removing embedded HTML.
Yeah, I mean don't forget the FAQ, so not FAQ, the schema drop was all over. So that's a Semrush tool overview. of the number of opportunities for an enhanced enriched search result, and what happened to the number of search results that actually gave that. So it's not that FAQ in and of itself disappeared, but all of the opportunities to have an enriched search result disappeared. So that was removed by Google from the search results. It wasn't just FAQ, it was everything. For me, FAQ is challenging because Google is not choosing the most relevant FAQ questions and answers to display in the search results. They're still relying on what you input. And hopefully that will change in the future. But as you saw with the best poker sites, it can actually result in you not getting the click. So one of the things I advise clients is you have to be very careful. I don't normally put embedded HTML within an FAQ. I know that some people put links in there because they're not clickable. Unlike people also ask, those are not clickable question answers. So some people put embedded links in there to make it easier, but that was a loss of everyone in the search result. So nobody got anything. Nobody got a featured snippet. Nobody got anything. So that was what that loss was.
It's
but
removing
FAQs, your first three are critical. So try not to make them too country specific like we saw on the poker site.
Andrea, do you have anything to comment on regards to what Judith has been saying so far?
So FAQ, yes, it's very, very relevant topic, I believe, because everyone has been playing because it's so simple and immediately, appeared on SERP for a few months. But reality is that FAQ tells the search engine this is an FAQ page, which kills, any other intent that is news related. So my thing here is that we notice that on news and media specifically, when we add FAQ, then we lose traffic from, let's say, Discover, and we lose traffic from, news carousels, top stories. So FAQ can be, very valuable when you have like an evergreen type of content that has a high ranking, and you believe that you can add some value on the SERP with that content. Otherwise, it's a waste of time. So we have to be very careful in the way in which we use it. But that has to do with the way in which Google interprets the schema, because we shouldn't use FAQ. Because FAQ, it's meant for FAQ pages. It's not meant for an article. It's been designed for a different purpose, but then Google has interpreted it in a way that the community got misled, and then everyone started to using it, and then we got a lot of pixels, but then we lost clicks, and then things change again. So we have to kind of interpret the way in which the vocabulary is designed and how Google plays with it. And we saw, I think, the product panel. The knowledge graph product panel, this is the biggest thing on SERP. Judith has shown us, one of the biggest hit on the SERP for anyone doing e-commerce. So Google is getting all the information in one place, and that turns into, a negative impact in terms of clicks for all the retailers. It can be very beneficial for the manufacturers, but it can be very bad for the retailers. And I think that they're still playing around. Currently, they are not releasing any interview about this topic, so it's still probably within the testing phase. So we'll see.
Wow.
We'll see what we get.
That's a lot to think about right there. Nik, what's your take on this?
Yeah, I kind of think like you made a really good point, Judith. Like what you're talking about there is really pertains to like just rich snippets. But schema in general is a really, really powerful way to be able to show web crawlers the authority of the sites. I mean, we've got like organizational, we've got like local schema, we've got breadcrumbs, and now that rel next and rel prev isn't a thing anymore, like how do we show web crawlers like where we want them to look, how we want them to be able to like crawl through our sites? I've noticed that like just simply adding like breadcrumb schema, I've seen like web crawlers be able to like have much better crawl rates throughout pages. I've been able to like make sure that users can be able to find things and toggle through pages a lot more intuitively. And there's like some really, really great like little Chrome extension, like the Google Analytics Chrome extension, and it actually shows you how many people are clicking onto that without having to have like Hotjar or anything like that. But they really do use that as a bit of an anchor to be able to find things. So I think that's an important one to kind of note that, while this is happening, not all schema is relevant.
Just because you can does not mean you should. That is
but it's so much fun.
General advice, like in life, just because you can eat the entire pint of ice cream does not mean you should. So you can apply it to anything.
Just like that chocolate we're holding out for.
Yeah, just because you can eat the whole bar does not mean you should.
Yeah, a little bit of discipline, yeah, and we highlight the important bits.
Yeah, and that's why planning is so important.
Savor the flavor.
Yeah, you want to savor the flavor and the schema.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've seen a lot of points come through about recovering schema. Just to be clear again, that loss was not FAQ schema. That was not FAQ in Google search results. So that loss that you're seeing in Semrush, somebody one day will come down with a definitive decision on that, and I won't have to say it twice. Although it's a good branding thing. That was, I think that was featured snippets or something similar in the search results. So it wasn't just FAQ that I was looking at for that. I was looking at all of the enhancements like ratings, which is the stars, stock levels, all of that sort of stuff. So product. All the product markups, as well as the featured snippets and things like that you're getting into Google search results, those are disappearing. So for individual products, like I think one of them was the night goggles, I looked at horrible histories, I looked at all sorts of things. So for individual products, you've got that panel at the side where you can comparison shop. Sorry for the people who have high markups. But you've also got other elements and other things, like you saw Best Poker Site, you saw the FAQ being pulled through. It's not just those things that are being lost. It's that nobody gets them. Not just somebody lost them. Nobody gets them. So that was my point.
Yeah. What was the time period around? Yeah. What was the time period around that? Because I noticed like when famously there was a little Google glitch. All of mine, like, a lot of the feature snippets that like one of my clients are ranking for just completely disappeared. So
yeah, that was recently. So that was just like that graph goes up to, I think, 3 days ago.
Okay.
Or something like that. It's not that old. So that graph is not that old. It goes from, I think, mid-August until just the other day. So it's only about 30 days worth of data, and it shows how it's gone from really, really high numbers of so that's the number of opportunities to get something enhanced in the search results. So Semrush has a really great product where you can you can monitor things, a campaign. So you can monitor a project, and one of the things you can do is monitor your search results for certain keywords. I think that's about 400 keywords, and we were looking at about 400 or 600 keywords for that. And across all those 400 or 600 keywords, all of those search results were, very few of them were still showing any sort of enhancements that are related to schema. So ratings, featured snippets, which aren't really schema, but all those enhancements that could be pulled through, like links, site links, which are related to schema in that you mark up with breadcrumb, they were gone. So it wasn't just FAQ, it was nobody was getting anything.
Yeah, fair enough.
Okay, that's the power of Google, right? Here you go, giveth with one hand, take away with the other. So this is part of our bread and butter. This is what we do. We want to be found in Google, so we play Google's game, and this is part of life. But I want to keep moving because I want to get onto Andrea's presentation. Now, first though, I thought there's a question here which may be a good lead-in, because one of our viewers, Rudo Makiyana, has asked, which plugins would you recommend? Well, of course, there's so many plugins. I mean, just jump online and start Googling for plugins for Schema. But, of course, we have with us Andrea, who's the CEO of WordLift, which is a fantastic plugin. So I would say, Rudo, definitely give that one a go. But anyway, that was a nice little plug for your tool.
Thanks.
But you know, there's so much you can do using Semrush. There's so many that helps you with your schema so much. There's so many tools available. But please, Andrea, I'm so interested in what you have to say. I've had a sneak peek at your slides.
Shout out to Jason Barlow.
Thanks, Jason.
And Nik Ranger, I hope you can help me here co-hosting along with Andrea, because please take it away. Share slides. Let's find out what people need to know.
Yeah, these are way more boring than Judith, so I will try to be fast. But okay, so my name is Andrea. I've been playing on the web for many years, and I focused on SEO and automation of SEO. But here I want to start with a complete different perspective. So I want to talk a little bit about why we do this, why we decided to invest in metadata in the first place. And there is this very beautiful concept by a philosopher that works at the Oxford University that described the semantic capital, which is what we do to provide meanings to the things in the world that we care about, to semanticize. And that's exactly the point here. And that goes a little to the content that you published and to the data that you published, because we are in the era of artificial intelligence, and data, it's really an important asset in your strategy. So when you do approach like Schema Markup, and there are plenty of solutions, so I'm not gonna recommend you just to go to WordLift, but there are so many different ways in which you can embrace these vocabularies. You should focus on creating the semantic capital, creating the value in the data that you published. And that this value can be looked at in so many different ways. So in this presentation, I just wanted to look at a little bit at the different layers of the return of the investment. So how can you measure the return of the investment on applying structured data? Because of course, as we heard from Judith's presentation, you don't have to mark up everything. So where should you start? And so as we have been working on this since, basically 2011, 2012, we came up with the first prototype of WordLift. And so we started to use the schema vocabulary as the vocabulary was really being created. The ROI at that time was very hard to measure. And now there are so many different ways in which you can, find the value in schema. So here we have 6 layers, 6 ways that you can experiment with in order to understand, what is the value. So rich results.
Can I ask just for a minute, since we had one of our questions that was submitted to us by Sam Penny, who's the senior SEO specialist at Optimizing, and he asked this question specifically. So I'm so glad you're going to explain this in such a structured way here. 6 different areas for figuring out your ROI for schema. I just wanted to interject there. So
that's good.
Please go ahead, Andrea. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, because of course, I mean, when we talk about a local business, we might focus on one aspect only. When we talk about a large publisher, we might look at different aspects. So each one should take the best for his own online business. And of course, content findability, digital branding, they might see, things that, have a kind of a hard to measure impact, but in reality, it's not so hard, And so I will walk you through some examples, and then of course you can stop me and we can discuss specifically about, something that shows up. Rich results. Yeah, that's what we've been talking about till now. So now we have, enough data in the Search Console that you can filter the clicks and understand, what has happened since, I had a structured data markup. And so here we see a travel brand in Canada, and, the improvement, it was measured from, in terms of rankings, in terms of click-through rate increase in comparison to the average clicks of the site. And so it's an easy way, looking at rich results, it's an easy way to measure your return of investment, because at the end of the day, you want to understand the business value of this implementation. So, it's a client that is booking a villa, it's a service subscription. So what is the business value you're working for? It's a new client that it's ringing at the door. It's a booking. And then what is the conversion rate that you have on the site? Because that allows you to kind of scope and say, hey, okay, that's the amount of money that we can generate if we bring, more qualified traffic to it. And then, of course, you have to analyze what would it take, and would it take a few hours in front of a web page to create a JSON-LD that I add on the page, or should I get a framework like WordLift or others solution in order to get a more comprehensive solution? It really depends. It really depends on the type of target. But then you can do the math and get the ROI, and so you will understand that you can focus on specific areas of your site where there is an actual business value. And then that's a basic formula. So you take the total number of clicks, and then you multiply by the conversion rates, and then you multiply by the business value, and then you can subtract the cost. Whether it's the SEO that you engage with for implementing the schema, or it's the tool that you're buying, or whatever costs you have. But that's the calculation that you can use for understanding what's the business value. So here we see, like, for instance, the impact on news article, and of course, so we are in this case in the context of a news publisher, and this is in Europe. And you can see that as soon as we plugged in, the proper markup for a news article, which is not just about, adding the markup of news article, but it's a lot of other small parameters that WordLift uses for providing, for instance, the images in the right formats and the mentions of the entities that are, detected in the text of the article. But we could immediately see, an uptake in terms of click that was pretty interesting in this case. And this is how long does it take? If the site is large, like in this case, it takes less, a couple of weeks, and you start seeing the results. It can take, maybe 4 weeks. Sometimes it can take more, depending on, the traffic volume and the search volume that you're dealing with. This is a very small photo blog. This is a guy that I met at a conference and that started to use WordLift. And then he showed me this graph, and he said, when I plugged the solution, I started to have a lot more keywords I'm ranking for. And that's another impact, because of course we mark up a lot of content with our tool, and then this makes the content more visible. And so we generally see an uptake on the impressions, which doesn't, means that we're bringing, directly more clicks, but we get more visibility. There are more keywords that we can work on. So we are kind of making the content more open for Google to understand it and to bring it to the end user. This is a travel business. This is an OTA in the Netherlands. We've been working for now almost 2 years. So this is like a kind of a data from 2018 and 2019. And we can see the impact on the business here. Though, the number of keyword that we are adding, it's kind of limited, but the audience that is landing on the site is more qualified. And so the click-through rates and the conversion rate is improving, because Google is capable of understanding on the long tail type of queries that this is the good site for that user. And so it's driving more traffic, and there's no rich results here. I mean, then of course we plugged also some rich results, but in the beginning it was really about expressing the things that the site talks about. And of course in the travel industry, it's super important to connect the lodging business with the intent of the user making the search. There is a lot more than actually schema enables, and so this is a quote by Bislasky on augmentation of query. So this is the mechanism that Google uses for providing results that take into account multiple keywords for that same intent. And these, in this patent, structured data is mentioned as a way for Google to expand the query, to understand the query, and to trigger a synthetic query that better answer the user request. So let me show you an example. When I ask for a CEO of WordLift, Google is capable of understanding that CEO of WordLift is Andrea Volpini, it's myself. And so he plugs in, content about CEO of WordLift, but it also immediately gets content about Andrea Volpini. And that's, this ambiguation of the intent from, CEO of a company into the person Andrea Volpini. It makes, a better SERP, but it also creates a better branding for the person or for the organization. So structured data, it's not only a way for getting, the stars or the clicks or a better click-through rate. It's a way for creating data that AI like Google can use for talking about or interacting about your brand or your person. And then, of course, here, we start to see that, these knowledge panels are composed no longer only by Wikipedia, but from the open web. And so we become, a source of information for Google and for other semantic search engine with our own websites. And that's probably Jason Barnard that has a lot of these examples where he can, trigger a panel in a few minutes now. Having said so, is schema a ranking factor? No, it's not. It's not a ranking factor, but it does improve, the way in which the information is presented to the user. And that can stabilize. Yeah. So that can stabilize your rankings. So you can see that in this example, when we plug structured data, we are able to, makes the rankings the position more stable. And of course improve the click-through rates. Voice search, this is another area, a complete different area of ROI. I mean, there are a lot of companies that want to, make the first move into voice search. Well, structured data is a simple and easy way for you to get into the Google Assistant, whether you're publishing news article or recipes or how-tos or FAQ, as we discussed in the previous presentation. You can immediately get into the voice search results of the Google Assistant. Speakable structured data, this is very limited, US only, content has to be written in English, but it works because it provides a way for search engine like Google to understand this content is what I expect to be speakable from this specific article. There is a caveat here. It's very hard to measure voice today. It's very hard to monetize voice for that matter. And there is a big issue in discoverability in general. So I have created several voice apps for the Google Assistant, but it's very hard to bring the user to these apps. And structured data is actually one of the ways in which you can trigger the voice response from Google in a super simple way. But yeah, again, I mean, it does require investment. So if you want to use it, just so you know that you might get your entrance into the assistant, but it's going to be hard to measure and to prove results. And that back to us, it means that we have to focus on the content that can really make a difference in your business. So you don't have to mark up everything. You have to mark up what makes a difference. Content structuring. This is more for like the mid-sized businesses and people that have a lot of content. We can use schema as a base for a content model, and that means that we can use the same language that Google uses for understanding the content we write about to organize and structure the content, and therefore improve the reuse of this content. And so here you see, for instance, this is a flyjet website that has been working for many years now with WordLift. And here we have at the center the event for South by Southwest. And then you see that the connection with the airports and the connection with the things to do in Austin, and then the reason why you should fly with us. And so this creates kind of a topical cluster around a specific intent, which is I want to get to South by Southwest with my private charter, and it can be wrapped up by creating content using schema as a content model. And these, of course, creates a lot more pages. And so this is an example of a design blog that has been adding a no index to all the entity pages that have been created by WordLift, and then all of a sudden updated the plugin and removed the no index. And so it got a lot of traffic because, of course, there is a lot of content when we start organizing and structuring stuff around schema. This is another example. We can plug Schema Markup into your Google Analytics. So you can go out and say trends by semantic SEO. So what are the trends on the WordLift side for semantic SEO? And that means that we start looking at content not in terms of pages, but in terms of entities. And that is a tremendous advantage, for instance, if you are selling advertising, because you can start saying, hey, I have this amount of traffic for semantic SEO and this amount of traffic for artificial intelligence, much like a social network would do. And then with these same data that you are creating, we are starting to use also widgets in content recommendation. So on the side, we can recommend better content because Schema is also used by our plugin for creating content recommendation. It's just to tell you that Schema is not just for Google. Schema is a way for creating, this semantic capital that you can reuse for improve your business. And that's pretty much all I have to say. These are, a few things that pitfalls and errors and stuff like that you might want to.
Don't step in the doo-doo.
Yeah, that was fantastic. That was
Thank you so
fantastic.
much. Yeah. What have you got, Nik?
Yeah, I'm just kind of blown away a little bit about basically just showing the data, like how the change over time and the CTR and the difference and what that could actually mean. Because of course, we do this with we add structured data with our clients and things like that, but some of that is just I would really, really like to kind of accelerate the potential for that. Because I think at the end of the day, in a lot of instances, what Judith was saying, people don't add structured data because it's it's a resource issue, and that's a huge one. Or it's they're not technical SEOs and they don't really understand what it does or how it sort of works. And I always kind of, what you were saying, it's almost like a philosopher trying to talk to, an everyday layman about how it works and what it means to mark it up as an entity and how those entities are categorized and how they will relate to each other rather than just but the content's on the page, so therefore Google should understand it. But it goes a little bit further than that. I have one question, maybe just about WordLift as a plugin or as its own thing, because it's also incorporating a lot of AI and a lot of ML. It's really, really cool. I think one of the pitfalls that I had was that it's a custom CMS, and so therefore the challenge was we have to have a developer to be able to build this out in the code and things like that. So again, it's a resource issue. Is there something that WordLift does or could do to be able to bridge that gap?
Yeah. Currently, we have a JavaScript library. So you just ask the developer to add one line of code, super simple, and then you can build your graph using WordPress. So we have a backend for editing the knowledge graph that WordLift creates for injecting the structured data on whatever CMS you have using WordPress. So that's a very simple way that allows anyone to plug, super advanced structured data on any website, just using, the simplicity of a WordPress UI.
Which I think for a lot of people would still be what do you mean?
Sorry.
But that's but that's really, really interesting, because then basically you can use WordPress almost like your front end to be able to mark up all of your entities, to be able to build the associations. That's really, really cool. And sorry, I'm already buzzing about a client I want to test that with. But let's go back a little bit. Sorry, I'm kind of hijacking this because I have so many questions. And I'm sure everyone else does too. But in terms of with entity categorization, what a lot of WordLift does is associating with the who, the what, the where, and the who, to be able to create organized databases of those entities. obviously to try and like help the user experience. Like how easy is that being able to see that as an SEO to kind of help inform what to do and maybe what even to do next with content?
Yeah, I think that as an SEO, I mean, if I would work with Judith, I would immediately ask Judith support for building, the knowledge graph, because you need the expertise of a content, a domain expert in order to understand, okay, this is going to be turned into an entity, whether it's a product, whether it's a local business. So you need the content expertise to make the decision that are required for saying, hey, this is an entity of this class. And that's the beginning. What do you think, Judith?
Yeah, absolutely. You need the expertise of the subject in order to be able to establish what the relationships are. Otherwise, you could make spurious associations that then break everything. And I have already seen one person asking a question saying, "Oh, I've tried to implement this, but this doesn't relate to to this product. What do I do?" So it can be very confusing for people when they're first implementing schema as well. So take it slow and easy. Don't start with the FAQ. Maybe that's possibly a little bit more complex. Maybe just tackle something like breadcrumbs. Get your feet wet.
Breadcrumbs are good old favorite, aren't they? Yeah.
Yeah, breadcrumbs is a good example because you get an immediate impact on the SERP, but you have to think content, you have to think user, you have to think about the navigation of your site. Because again, I mean, let's not look at schema as a way to get on the SERP, because that's what we are here for. But the reality is that schema is a way for organizing your website. And breadcrumbs is a great example for that.
But you've got, so breadcrumbs, that's great. Look, there's a question that we got submitted earlier on from a person on LinkedIn, and I believe you've already started answering this question, Andrea. It's from Vuran Metal, and he asks, Google Search Console is showing errors. Either offers, review, or aggregate ratings should be specified. So it's product schema, okay?
Yep,
and we see this quite a lot with these kind of errors coming through. And of course, I'm sort of elaborating on the question a little bit here because everybody wants product schema. They want the reviews, But how are we going to handle these kind of errors? What's your take? Is there a quick and easy way to worry about these kind of errors?
Yeah, I think on LinkedIn I provided a JSON-LD snippet for fixing the errors. So that's the quick question. That's the quick answer. The real answer is that you don't need to fake data. You don't need to Well, first of all, there is one important things to be said. Google relies on the guides. So the guides are way more important than the way that the tools are reacting. So you want to make sure that you read Google guides before testing errors on the rich result testing tool or the good old structured data testing tool. And a warning might be okay, because, I mean, we don't want to provide data which is not qualified. That I totally, would discourage you to do it. So you don't want to fake data. You don't want to create fake data just to remove the errors, because it's not going to work.
Oh, you're spoiling all of our fun. I don't know. Nobody probably remembers these things. I'm old. I've been around in this industry since 96. So I remember, not in 96, we didn't have schema in 96, but there was a time when a lot of SEOs were faking the ratings. So they would have fake or false ratings, fake or false reviews. Now that in the UK and in the EU is an issue, because it's an advertising issue, because you're purporting something on behalf of a consumer and it's a lie. And in 2008, the UK brought in a law that, results in a big fine or, jail time. So don't do that, kids. But we used to. And we used to abuse. And one of the points on your slide was you could get a manual penalty for abusing schema. Now, I'm not saying this to frighten people into not using it, but if you don't
do it.
if you don't have an aggregate rating, if you don't have legitimate, genuine reviews, do not mark them up. Don't fake it in order to pass a test. it's a lie. It's a criminal offense in the UK. I think it also is in the EU. So, maybe if you're in America, you're safe. But yeah, over here, don't fake that stuff up just to pass a Google test.
Yeah,
It's
Google
also a
Webmaster-
criminal offense for all the AI that can use your data besides Google. So don't do that. Be respectful of the AI.
Yeah, the poor machines are still learning. GPT-3, everybody's so thrilled about, but it's still not healthy. I love GPT-2. It was crazy. It was kind of like a guy on acid that you asked, what time is it? And he said, the sky is purple and it's melting.
Well, I use GPT-2 for commenting on Google Core Update because it was so, illuminating. But, yeah.
That's a good segue because like the Webmaster blog actually came out last year with basically to say like you can't have any like reviews that you basically own. So if we see that, we're not going to consider it. Don't do it. And I think like when they add that, I think they're just wanting to have a little bit more clarity for any webmasters, SEOs, site owners out there about what they should do and what they should add.
Hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, we've just got 5 minutes left, so perhaps what I might do is go around and just ask for an impromptu, off the cuff, one thing that you would do. Nik Ranger, one thing that you would do with Schema. Just a 1 minute grab.
One thing. Oh my gosh. Well, I think I've already said it. Breadcrumbs is like incredibly important. I think just from being able to implement that again, it's really helps with like crawlers going through your website, being able to parse and understand it. And it's a really good way of being able to show authority around your site. Plus, it also really helps users to be able to go back, click around, be able to toggle through category pages, product pages, and the like. So again, that's really important.
Great. Judith, do you have the one thing that our viewers can go away and do with Schema?
Besides, don't fake it. So for me, it's planning. So as Nik said, breadcrumbs are so important because they help you understand your website. If your website isn't actually organized in a way that you can mark up for Schema your breadcrumbs, then you're in trouble. So plan everything, sit down, and don't be overwhelmed by schema.org. The world is your oyster, but sit down and look at your website and look at the competition and see what they've got and what is possible for you first, and plan on only those elements first. If no one in the SERPs have FAQ, don't do that first. Do ratings, do reviews, do something else, calories in your recipe if you're a big recipe blogger. Look at what everybody else is doing first and then go the next step.
Great advice. Yeah. So planning, that's important. Don't overreach to begin with. Andrea, what would be your one thing that you would say to people to do with Schema right now?
So think of Schema as your sitemap on steroids. It's a new way for creating a sitemap for search engine and machines. But also don't stop experimenting, and because be your own Google. Be your own Google. Think about using this data yourself in the first place.
Great. And Nik Ranger, best place for people to connect with you and ask you further questions after this webinar.
Yep.
What's your best channel?
Twitter. Easily. Twitter. I'm always on Twitter. And if I'm not on it, it's probably because I'm working or sleeping. So Nik Ranger SEO on Twitter or in LinkedIn or at stuhawk.com.au/staff/Nik. I had to look at that today, so that's why I know the URL by heart.
Thanks so much for co-hosting. Judith, is Twitter the best place for people to ask you quick questions about Schema, or what's your best channel?
Absolutely. So Twitter, as you can see there, I put my Twitter handle at Judith Lewis. Woohoo! Branding for the win.
Nice.
You can contact me there or on LinkedIn if it's a longer question, or if it's a longer question on Twitter, just ask and I'll follow you so that you can DM me. But ask away, especially because we haven't even spoken about entity relationships that much, right?
We haven't spoken about relationships. And,
I tried, but there's not enough time.
There's too much. You could do a whole hour on just that sort of stuff.
Absolutely.
Wow. And Cyber Andy, I can see your Twitter handle right there, and terrific. And I'm assuming that that you're happy to keep the conversation going, that type of thing on Twitter. Yeah. So I thank you all once again. What a great webinar! I think this is really great information for everyone. And without further ado, I will hand over to the next bit of information on the web that's not us. Thank you all and goodbye.
Have a good night, guys.
Ciao,
Thank
ciao.
you so much
Ciao.
for joining.